Thank you all for coming. This is the first of 3 Luminary series talks that we have this week. We are very pleased to introduce Bruce Smith. And I'm going to read a short introduction, and then Bruce is going to take off with his presentation as soon as I get the mic settled. So, Bruce Smith, and it says 12/4/58. He's a fellow and of the Society, and also a recipient of the Certificate of Merit. Bruce has been caving for 63 years in ropework and related topics, and 64 years as a caver. When I first talked to Bruce about doing the presentation, I asked if he would talk about the steps and the pathways that he took that led to on-rope and also on-rope 1, which we'll discuss today. He is a NCRC course instructor, a wilderness first responder, and been on the Pendleton County Cave and Cliff Unit for 53 years. Bruce is also the president, founder, and CEO of On-Rope 1, a private corporation that manufactures and retails gear for all types of rope uses, and also teaching high-angle rescue skills to rescue teams and fire departments all over the U.S. He has served as an expert witness on numerous lethal cases. He is the past president and CEO of 2 Chattanooga restaurants for 10 years and worked for the McDonald's Corporation for 10 years prior. And it's my pleasure to introduce Bruce Smith as the 2025 Luminary speaker with this talk titled The Great Vertical Transition. Thank you, Bruce.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I apologize for not having an array of amazing generated pictures and illustrations and history. It's hard to go back that far. Most cameras weren't even invented in some of those things. But as we have grown in age, with skills and equipment, many changes have occurred. Many changes have occurred with large and vertical rope work, and we've matured into a far safer platform of which we would call a high-risk activity many years ago. My 65-year journey through this road has been painful, sometimes sad, but eventually rewarding. Through it all, I shall never forget the numerous friends that I have met and caved with along the way. It was amazing as you walked in here. I was kind of counting this. I know them, I know them, I know. And about 80% of you, I knew your names. So let me begin with a passage that I would like to read, a true adventure account from the early days of exploration that I read in my college days, which haunts me to this very day. It's kind of like set me going. Set this stage, the group of experienced cavers in 1990 or 1954 in the Pyrenees on a natural boundary between France and Spain. There was a cave to be named in a moment. In the entrance shaft, a member of their team had fallen in 1,200 feet to their death from a trapeze-style harness. The scene was set that evening for the raising of the deceased caver. Quote, and on the evening of the exhumation, after pitching a tent for Moray and Ballandreau, we were aroused from sleep at about midnight by the roll of thunder, which grew minute by minute, and the cascade in the shaft, swollen by an exceptionally heavy downpour, allowed us a glimpse of its awful possibilities. At the same time, another sound, even more alarming, arose from the depths, and this was the subterranean torrent in flood, growling below the chaos of rock. Hence, the internal changes of the chasm, those traces of extensive flooding, which we observed last year, and the collapse of boulders. The whole place roared, vibrated, and there were falls of stone. Pierre Saint-Martin was in labor, and we were in a living chasm in full process of evolution. Lying in absolute darkness, wrapped in our sleeping bags under the frail illusory shelter of our canvas tents, the consciousness of our weak, helpless state in the presence of this awful demonstration taught us an eloquent lesson of humility. That was from Norbert Castoret in the book Descent of Pierre Saint-Martin in 1954. Anyway, and I have saved that page from that book and read from it numerous times, thinking about, I don't want to ever be in that situation. You know, rescuing somebody in the middle of the night under those conditions, and what can we do to change that? And so my quest began. Since this event, many wonderful things have occurred that put together the cornerstones of safe vertical travel along the use of efficient, safe techniques. I have been gifted living in a time of our lives that includes so much of the evolution of rope work. How did all the people and their skills and knowledge come together? This period of time has become known to me as the great vertical transition. Like cave diving, your chances of living through a caving adventure was only 10% when I was in grade school. But while we have all been to too many funerals of our cave diving friends, the number is far less for non-diving cavers. So when I was 12, the story gets interesting here. I joined the Boy Scout group and then went sailing. Our first big adventure resulted in a scout trip. Packed up the boats for the summer since sailing wasn't done off season. And so, what do we do now? He says, we went caving. And I said, we did what? And so that was my first exposure to caving at 12. It was my response that 64 years later, my dark adventure without scuba began. And I collected and read the Speleo Digests collection, absorbed as much as I could. I met Jack Speece from York, Pennsylvania, and Paul Damon from Monroeville, Pennsylvania, who I talked into copying reams of historical, technical caving documents. Then I got a copy of this was one of the best books I've ever written. A copy of a book called From James Wellborn Story, whose family is all over the audience. American Caving Illustrated. I read it and reread it and bought 8 copies, of which I gave all of those I caved with. 1. Knowledge became one of my biggest obsessions. My best friend Bob Wells from Princeton, New Jersey, in the audience, right there, was a recipient of one of those books. He has it today. We talked this morning. Illinois, where I lived at the time, had many cold and wet experiences, but that soon changed. So I moved to Maryland, introduced me to new caving challenges, and not having a cave contact, I went to the local rock shop and asked a well-trained salesman, that was a joke, okay? How do I rappel? Leaving the shop, I turned around and asked how do I climb back up? And he showed me a pair of Heiblers, which that will ring a bell a few of you. And he talked through the concept, and then he pulled out a pair of Jumars, and I faded at the $13.50 price. I thought they were each, and I think Gary Story told me that was a pair. too much of my 10th grade budget, or for my 10th grade, that I left the store with a set of Heiblers and tandem brake bars. It then became a matter for my knowledgeable friends who knows how to use this gear. This became the beginning of a lifetime of friendships and accidents and amazing experiences, funerals and sorrows. Who were these people and what relations did they have or perhaps not have? And could I contribute to any of the wealth of their knowledge or just be a sponge? Well, high school ended with numerous adventurous trips to Maryland and Northern Virginia. Then our small gaming group got a copy of William E. Davies' book, The Caverns of West Virginia. Oh my God. Page 213 was an extraordinary picture of a deep cave pit in Pendleton County. Hellhole became my challenge and our challenge, and I, along with my closest friend at the time, Tim Skellchock, who tragically died in an airplane crash. I have a history of a lot of people dying. 2 years later, and my brother found ourselves in Hellhole, staring down a 154-foot abyss. The entrance pit, we lowered our 200-foot, 3/4-inch hemp road down the entrance for our first descent. We used endless loop diameter slings for harnesses, and we all repelled safely. Going up would be another story. A passerby by the name of Kennedy, who to this very day, I have never met this gentleman again, but he stopped by with a friend, and they assisted us in our rescue and pulled us out using a Georgia home. 2 weeks later, we were back in Hellhole for our third time with a very clever idea. We decided to pull each other out with a car. I climbed out and pulled my 2 companions out one at a time using a vehicle. Then at the entrance silo, the last climber, Tim Skellchock, was pulled up to the sinkhole to the entrance log. And I did not receive the stop signal and kept pulling, dragging Tim up the entrance sinkhole along with the log to the border fence. And I stopped. This was all done in front of a huge welcoming set of onlookers. I had no idea where they came from. Welcome to my first OTR. I met many of my future new friends that day. Tim and I later had a hot dog stand at the bottom of Hellhole, which we only sold half the hot dogs. Anyway, but Tim and I later took the hot dog stand and set it up, the other half in front of and our inventory in front of the fast food franchise in front of the OTR site in front of the old mill near Franklin. We could have been the first Speleo vendor. My biggest pet peeve through it all were buckles. Buckles, it was my analysis that every strap harness we purchased that had buckles were not compatible with the webbing width. This became the biggest reason I became designing gear for the future of on-road. We were unable to tighten or secure our harnesses. More on this later. So the knowledge continues. Walking to Walt Allen, Bill Bigger's famous cave in West Virginia, we ran into a gentleman with his pregnant wife riding on a farm wagon and stopped to speak with him. Charles and Lavone were caving while Chris was riding warm inside Lavone. We talked extensively about rope climbing and about some climbing cams that he'd developed. Mr. Charles Gibbs and I became close friends, and I would cross paths numerous times in the future. By the way, Chris is doing well at age 54, living in Florida. That summer in 1970, I decided to go to my first NSS convention in State College, Pennsylvania. Hellhole's exploration had intensified, and a friend, Buddy Bundy, who has passed, and friends discovered a side lead of the main entrance room that dropped down about 100 feet, downcline to a drop-off to 33 feet into a 600-foot-long room called the Ship Room. Named after Randy Ship, who was a close friend of Buddy, I was excited about this new discovery, and it was the first significant find in Hellhole in many years. And a gentleman by the name of Bill Cuddington was on his way to Pennsylvania to the NSS convention from Rome and called me to guide me to the new Hellhole discovery. And after our trip, we traveled together to the convention and spent an incredible week together. A week to be significant in the story of the great vertical transition. The transition began in earnest with the arrival of Charles Gibbs, Bill Cuddington, and significant others, including Steve Hudson, Bob Thrun, Dick Graham, Larry Caldwell, some might call him Smokey, Richard Schreiber, Gary Storick, Susan Newell, Kurt McGregor, it's okay, George. George, I still love you. And Alan Patchen, to name a few. And I was blessed with significant input about how to climb, descend, and navigate via rope. That many approaches to vertical work left me confused but energized. Two of the most significant additions to the vertical list of advances included: one, Gibbs unfastened the knee rope walker cam ascender from his knee, allowing it to float, causing the floating cam that summer, 1970. Kurt McGregor introduced a chest roller attached to a chest harness with two flimsy dog clips. I mean, flimsy dog clips. And a little couple of plastic rollers that came off the sides. We looked at it and said, this has got no future. But this had to have been the inspiration for Ron Simmons, who later went on to design and produce a single chest roller, which later he saw the need for a double chest roller for other applications. Kurt's introduction of the chest roller was genius and trends today as the method to incorporate within a rope walking system. I recall in 1973 at the Indiana Convention, by the way, Dick Graham and I had a rope climbing competition on knots, climbing up using a roller, using a Mitchell system in those days. And I recall Dick Graham smoked me, I think, by 2 strokes. But anyway, I missed him too. Now here's one for you. Don Davison. How many people know that guy? Don Davison was in his own right, if you can get past his arrogance, he was an amazing, knowledgeable gamer. He was the first to climb the siege wall in Ellison's cave between the balcony and the attic by pounding one bolt in at a time. No drills, not the new fashioned way. Marion Smith and he had an adversarial relationship, which ended in a fight one evening in Knoxville, resulting in Marion taking the worst of the abuse. But both adventurers have contributed significantly to a vertical history. Don Davison disappeared, by the way, during a climbing accident in Patagonia, Chile. That was a shame. At this time, in May, 53 years ago, Kyle Eisenhardt, living in Parkersburg, West Virginia, often joined us on camping trips in Germany Valley and went on to develop extensive variety of hardware that we all use today. Also at this time, this one goes down in history more than I had ever realized, that Kurt McGregor was very well involved in the development of the squeeze brake rappel device, which eventually failed while being used by Sarah Corey, which caused her to fall 40 feet, putting her in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Another squeeze brake, called the Escape Line, was tested by Larry Caldwell from the top of the old Superdome in New Orleans, a 250, 300-foot drop, and that's told to me by Smokey that when he reached the extraordinary speeds with the device, it spewed shredded nylon from the top of the device as the repeller got closer to the ground, creating a vertical shower of fiery nylon. Maybe not your best descendant. But, all right, Mike Fischesser, another famous name that I've leaned on over the years, along with Marion Smith, recently been the compendium and substantial exploration of Ellison's Cave, and I had opportunities to exchange sewing ideas and approaches to sew harness design with Mike. And we agreed on many concepts, and he produced a harness he called the butt harness, an extensive, complicated, and very heavy, but very safe body harness. My first harness into Ellison's. Mike has gone on to run a very successful business at Alpine Towers near Boone, North Carolina. You know, so far we've all been looking at how to do this safely, and then it's all emerging into things longer and taller and further. Long drops became the challenges back even in the days of Pierre Saint-Martin. Big drops became the big news of the NSS in many circles. A huge drop was discovered to exist on Mount Thor in Canada. A team headed up that way in 1982, and eventually Dan Twilley led the way with his rappel and eventually ascent of the 3,230-foot drop. Using a rope walker, an extensive interview told me, and which was published in Now Highway 15, that McGregor's new squeeze brake device was used to descend the drop. It took Twilley, how far? 3,230 feet? 18 minutes and 49 seconds. That was the biggest success of the squeeze brake ever. It was a different design, obviously, than one that spewed nylon. There were two expeditions to this is an interesting fact here, by the way. There had been two expeditions to Mount Thor over the years, both of which ended badly. A quarrel over drug use divided the loyalties of the first attempt, while on the second, a ranger passing by joined the group and began being unaccustomed to the use of a rappel rack, fell to the bottom. That was the last Thor trip. After this time, numerous expeditions to Mexico unveiled the great depths of Sotno and Galliprinas, and became commonly visited deep pits over 1,000 foot deep. Climbing methods were stretched. Motorized ascending device, MAD, was invented and built by Nevin Davis of Burnsville, Virginia, and now owned by Gary Storick, amongst his amazing collection of rope traveling gear. The safety became a QAS per Cuttington and renamed it the Quick Attachment Safety. since then have become other names such as cow's tail and so on. Hemp was replaced with lay gout grow line, followed by Samson 2-in-1, which didn't spin when weighted, followed by Blue Water and PMI, which set a high rope standard for many years. Back in Hellhole, though, a gentleman I had never met by the name of Bill Stone walked up to me and asked if he could buy a vertical 10 patch. Anybody know what that is? Okay. It was a patch of honor that if you climbed out 10 caves that were over 100 feet deep, you got a little patch. Anyway, there was only about 10 caves in West Virginia at the time, and even had 100-foot depth. He went on to secure such a patch, and this started a mutual respect relationship, which continues to this day. In the early 70s, Bill Cuddington announced his intention of creating a vertical section of the NSS, and there was a need for a newsletter. I volunteered to collate the numerous articles from people that I'd spoken with, and I called it the Nylon Highway. This exposure to the vast wealth of vertical knowledge became a need for knowledge, and a turning point that then became known as the need for a book. After a substantial search, the NSS asked me if I would author such a book, if I could get a co-author. And so Gary Storick was the first of their choice to become the first co-author of On Rope. But after an interview, his proposal included a complete analysis of all the vertical gear ever made or used. Looking at his collection will tell you of his amazing depth of equipment knowledge. Note, by the way, there was a special building being built at the NSS office for all of us to see and study Gary's collection. Alan Pageant was asked to be the co-author, and we seemed to hit it off. And in '84, NSS convention in Sheridan, Wyoming, we sat on saddled stools in the kids section in the local McDonald's and planned our future. With a Happy Meal, of course. I took a job at Chattanooga, Tennessee, about 106 miles from Delano, where Alan worked, and we met at a fancy hotel in Atlanta for breakfast and wrote an outline of what we felt should be included, paragraph by paragraph. And after 16 hours, we called it a day and began writing our individual assignments. We met about every 3 weeks, typed our progress on a TRS-80 Radio Shack computer. We have come a long way, folks. It took a floppy disk. Every chapter took a floppy disk, except for 4 chapters took 2 floppy disks. We solicited the talents of Ponder Williams to be the illustrator and Mark Walensky as a photographer. And On Rope the book, title of On Rope was Alan's idea. The process took 3 years and was published in October of '87. The book received a substantial amount of success, and soon Alan and I realized the illustrations were somewhat juvenile, and the content tended to be more historical rather than the current day user-friendly, and we embarked on a second edition. Arthur Larson, during a vertical training week, pulled me aside and offered me some sage advice. We met in his kitchen in Invermere, British Columbia, Canada, under the light of a hanging 15-watt light bulb for 3 days. And we went over On Rope sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, lifting, sifting, and analyzing every fact and statement. His knowledge and suggestions were well thought out and very impactful, and became the backbone of the second book effort. The second edition was completely rewritten, thinking we could copy a paragraph and add a sentence here or two proved ineffective. And we hired a new illustrator, Ron Buffington, who provided the look that we were looking for, and it was completed in '96. Arner and his rope manufacturer, Steve Hudson, along with Bill Cunningham, did not fully get along. And as Arner approached rope work from a more European and studied point of view, his conflict raged on publicly as well as behind the scenes, often spending 3 days beneath after spending 3 days beneath a 15-watt light bulb, pushed me to side with Arner on many points. So starting so many years ago, with trapeze harnesses and prussics, ascents to present day, we find numerous rope walking versions and European published procedures. Alan and I published a down and dirty version of a frog system on rope. Contrary to the desires of Bill Cunningham, when the book came out, this mention of frog system was included, and Bill was displeased and kicked me out of the vertical section. No, transition can be painful. I was not allowed to enter the vertical contest or the vertical section meeting at the University of South in 1989. His displeasure was vitriol, and I made myself scarce that year at convention. Eventually, he and I made friends again, and because the book had been printed, it wasn't going to go away or change. So after we talked, or my talk with Arner, I ramped up the frog system coverage in On Road 2, the second edition, and covered the subject fairly thoroughly. The European influence had been very effective and changed Bill's opinion to some degree. Numerous Americans like Ron Miller and many others, along with the people who became rope technicians, have proven the advantages of the frog, while much of what was achieved by frogging was also achieved using a sit-stand climbing system, but sit-stand systems were never as smooth. The additional use of a pencil pen also turns the frog into a rope walker under the right person's guidance. And it was in fall of 1995 that I was joined by John Duregan and Mike Mather, rescuer out of Rhode Island, on a venture to Tibet, China, to first descend and soon become the famous National Geographic Hellhole River. And together we solidified lasting friendships and concepts of On-Rope, my new company. Their input and mentorship guided me to start my own business of manufacturing, caving, climbing gear. I had just lost my job and spent the next year designing and shaping the new company, renamed On-Rope 1, since a Tennessee caver by the name of Tony McGee already claimed On-Rope on his license plate. Isn't it right to put your name and your company on your license plate? So that was no longer available to me. So all the things that frustrated me with regards to current designs, I challenged and attempted to update. By the way, Tony and I still remain good friends after that. I challenged and attempted to update the designs, including buckles, sized to fit the webbing, stronger and larger thread sizes to meet specified standards, which meant larger machines, sized foot stirrups, which allowed climbers' ankles to fit and sit flat securely, The lighter weight, adjustable systems to fit all sizes of people, prices were competitive, and I had a fast response to orders as well as availability. The challenges presented were numerous and time-consuming. Safety made and tested. Each item was made with the user's safety in mind. My one sewing machine shop turned into 32 sewing machines. It was my intent to make some climbing and rappelling systems available to everyone who desired them. Being a caving vendor was an amazing way to spend my free time, yet surely pulled away from my time underground. Word to the wise for those who want to be vendors. There's a sacrifice. I saw a drastic and great vertical transition in the ways that North American cavers climb and rake. Splat. The Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians is also an extension of the European approach to rope work. But from my point of view, while all that went before, the long-term future rests with froggers and technicians. Long-distance climbs still require someone substantially fit and in shape. I have enjoyed 65 incredible years caving, 63 years experience in cave work related topics. I was co-author of On Rope 2, the definition of North American SRT how-to manual. It is now often referred to nationally as international as the Bible of rope work. It is currently the best-selling book in the world on the subject, selling approximately 180,000 copies. I was also a certified NCRC instructor, course director, and coordinator. NCRC is the only nationally recognized certification as an instructor except for the military. I've been a wilderness first responder and a member of the Chattanooga Pendleton County Rescue Squad and Cliff under 53 years. Treasurer and Vice President, I've been founder, president, CEO of the On Rope 1 Inc. and private corporation that manufactures and retails gear for all types of rope and gear. We made harnesses for NASA. I also taught On Rope 1's high-angle rope courses to rescue teams and fire departments all over the United States for the last 11 years, and On Rope 1's courses are necessary for the graduation of several challenges. Our colleges and universities that now require this as part of their professional majors. I've been an expert witness, deposed 7 times, testified once. I've also been the past president and CEO of 2 Chattanooga restaurants for 10 years and worked for McDonald's Corporation for 10 years prior and was instrumental in the creation of the building of Heibler University, one of the most sophisticated industrial training centers in the world. And I've been a member of the NSS for 55 years and was awarded the Fellow and Certificate of Merit. I mentioned several people in this paper that I've missed and have long passed away. I'm going to list them, that if they went by quickly. I miss Marion Smith, Don Davison, Bill Cunnington, Buddy Bundy, John Dragon, Joe Ivey, Bob Thrunt, Dick Graham, Kirk McGregor, Sarah Corey, Larry Caldwell, Richard Schreiber, Tony McGee, Dick Mitchell, Tim Skellchock, Ron Simmons, and Nevin Davis, and James Wellborn Story. Foundation people. The reason we're here today, safely, is because of some of the great inputs they've given to us over the years. Any questions?
Bruce, could you make sure you repeat any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Were you paid an honorarium for On Rope 1? And if so, what was your hourly rate?
Oh, yeah. I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
Al and I both received $1 a book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we did until about a year ago. And then they stopped and said the sales weren't large enough to generate $1.
So if you looked at your honorarium, you know, what would you think you got paid per hour for the amount of time you put in? Was it $1 an hour?
No, I don't think so. No.
There are other questions for Bruce?
Any detail I missed? Yes, sir.
When did the rappelling rack, were you involved in developing that as well?
Oh, that's a very, that was,
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, I'm sorry, the question was repelling rack. Where did that get shoved in the middle of that?
John Cole.
Yeah. John Cole, out of Atlanta, I believe.
Huntsville.
Or Alabama. Okay. Huntsville. And he developed the first one, and several came after that, but his was the first. Aha, this works. Saved me many times. Very good input.
Other questions for Bruce? Any chance? You'll be signing autographs afterwards? Okay. And maybe you can make back some of the time. Was it $10 on autograph?
Make back all that money I made on the road. Sir.
Mitchell fit into it all.
What's that again?
How's the Mitchell fit into it all?
Mitchell, Dick Mitchell, who just passed away recently. I was there the day before he died with him in Denver. Anyway, Dick Mitchell, he's in the military when it happened, and he pretty much decided that using the double roller, he could make this and this happen. And the Mitchell became, you talk to a lot of people, and they'll say that's probably one of the most advanced climbing systems available for most situations. I know, and Gary thinks that. He and I agree on almost everything, except for a couple of them. We won't go on.
Unlimited brake bar.
Aluminum brake bars, bullshit. Yeah.
What year was that, though? What year was that? In the 60s? Mid-60s?
Ah.
70s?
Early 70s, I believe. John Cole. If you know, tell me.
I first saw a rack for sale at Bud's Sports Shop in Southern Indiana in 1968 or 9. And he had a little sign on the table that said, "Tested in golden greenness." But I don't know. Anyway, my question was, you said that you got double brake bars and Heiblers and then went to Hellhole with 3/4 inch rope. How did you use double brake bars on 3/4 inch rope?
It fit. You know how? There were CMI brake bars, which are square and smaller.
Yeah. And really big carabiners.
And, a couple carabiners.
And will Heiblers even go on 3/4 inch rope? That's what I started with.
And, well, as soon as you sit on the rope and it stretches out, it gets smaller, they fit on this one.
Oh my.
I seem to remember a story of you having to cut the end of a rope off and make cruising knots out of it to get out of the pit. Is that you?
No. I've done some stupid things, but I don't think I did that. Probably the only one that came up yet this morning was some guy walked up to me. I know something that you did that nobody else knows you did. And I said, I think I probably remember. What was that? And he said, you climbed out of Hellhole on one ascender on a bet with, died. Another,
Gordon Brace?
Sam?
Gordon Brace?
no.
No.
Gordon would be that dumb.
No.
He said
Sam Peacock?
You know, I ran this thing the other day.
Huh?
Sam and I ran into each other the other day. He's around. Anyway.
You have another question in the back to Bill?
Yeah, Bill?
Hi. The first 1,000-foot propellers off the logically time built at Sequoia, Cuttington Territory, 2 or 3 other people. Bill Mock and Alan Ryan carried the ropes up, and we were up there 15 minutes after Bill got there.
And what's this one?
I think it's just a statement.
Okay. That's pretty amazing.
Are there, anybody, any other
We
questions?
invented the frog.
Okay.
We invented the frog.
The frog is a European derivative.
Bull.
Oh.
John Fish.
Who?
John Fish, Texas Cable. Bloomington Convention, 1965.
I think French had it well before that.
What?
French had it well before that.
No, they didn't.
Take it out to the parking lot, guys. Yeah.
79, British came in, I introduced it to them, and they took it over and showed it to the French.
Rich Musket.
We have another question in the back.
Yeah, I think I remember a story at one point I heard about certain carabiner, the gendarme shot for a long time, and how it got to be the shape that it was, and it's certain adventures. Inverted gate.
The one was broken?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was mine.
That carabiner.
I still own that carabiner. Both parts of it.
What's part of this? What's up that little short story?
I was caving. And it's a long story, but anyway, I went caving alone. And which we all do. And I wanted to see this new cave called Moyer's Twin Wells in just about south of Franklin, West Virginia. So I found it and hiked up to it, got permission from the owner. He was working the property, and he said, "Okay, have a good time, be careful." And he said, "I'll be back next week." And so at this point, he was the only one that knew where I was. No one else knew. I didn't even know where I was going to go until I got there. Anyway, so he knew that. And then, so I went in the gate, and rappelled on the bottom. It was like a 75-foot drop. And I noticed a big window on the way down, so I mitchelled up and dropped down the other hole and went down to the bottom again. And wow, there's the Twin Wells, right? And so I'm heading so I get back out to the first drop again, and I started Texasing up. So I'm Texasing. And I get up about 3/4 of the way, and I noticed a little hole in their flake. And I went, "Oh, this is new. I don't think everybody knows about this." And so I worked my way up this flake, kind of got off rope and chimneyed up the flake till I got to the top of the flake, and there was a hole, and it dropped off through another hole down to another big pit. So I pulled my rope up, dropped it up through this S-shaped thing in the flake, and dropped it back down. That's right. So it went down the bottom. And it was a little short, but I rappelled down and then dropped off the end of the rope a little bit. And we all did that. And so Moyer's Twin Wells became Moyer's Triple Wells, but it never stuck. Anyway, so I got back on the rope, went back down, went back down, went back up again. I'm going up, and all this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This I had a pure lane carabiner. It was a French carabiner that was, anyway, it was a locking carabiner. Apparently it got spun around and backwards, but I was going up and down, and all my action on my C harness caused it to unscrew. And so it got up, and so I was literally 8 feet from the top when, that's my best guess, okay, when the whole carabiner turned sideways, and I was in a diaper seat, which then pulled it sideways, stretched it, and then sprung the center gate up and off. And then dropped me out of this harness completely to the bottom. So I learned to fly that day. But I did a bunch of back rolls down, and I landed on my head, and my helmet was, I still had the helmet, the beast of the helmet. It was shattered completely. My helmet was crushed. I landed on the light, and it was a flattened piece of brass. Anyway, and I woke up about, I wasn't sure, because my watch stopped when I landed, but I think it was about 1:30 in the afternoon. And I said, man, I have, nobody knows where I am. And the owner doesn't know where I am. He's going to be back in a week. And so I said, I got to do something. So I started thinking about, I'm glad I had the experience I had. So I still had an ascender. The long ascender was still on my gear. Hadn't engaged it. And the other two ascenders were 67 feet in the air. And so with the one ascender, I doubled over and made, I had a belt made out of webbing. It was double wrapped around me, and I made it into another harness, because that was going to. Because I made a harness and hooked my ascender into that, and then so that was a primary Texas, and the other one was anyway. Somehow I did a foot thing, foot up, and step by step, steady Eddie, and I got up to all the gear was on there, and I hooked it immediately, all over on my body, and everything. And then the last 8 feet, I over-climbed with all kinds of extra shit on. But I got to the top, and I had a broken foot out of it, and that broke when my foot snapped off the Texas ascender. So it was, and so anyway, so I hobbled off the top, and it was about a half mile down to the car. Got in the car, went through about three gates, went up, out whatever. Got to the first farmhouse, which I'll never forget the name of the farmhouse. The name was Spawnoggle. And the things you just don't forget in your life, And the Spawnogles, I interrupted their summer, their Sunday dinner, Saturday dinner, and so here's this stupid caper, bloody on their front porch. And said, I think I need a little help. And they took care of me. They took me to Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg. Yeah. And I was there for 4 days. I was in good shape. That's the only bone I've ever broken in my entire life.
But we all do that.
One more. What do you got?
So did you cave by yourself again after that one?
Oh, look at you. probably have. Yeah, I have. I surveyed a couple of counties up in Pennsylvania, and I couldn't find anybody to Cape with me, so I went, and they were all pretty simple kids. So, did I do anything really crazy, stupid? I don't think I did. Maybe. Maybe I did. But you know what? I'm in front of you right now, and I'm feeling great. So.